Welcome to Thursday night. We're here again with, if I'm not mistaken, part 4 of the Vimalakirti experience, part 4B actually. And in 4B, we run into one of my favorite chapters, the goddess, or how to consider living beings, depending on which translation you're using. But in the Thurman translation, it's called the goddess. And for this, we have on I just hung up my tortoise hair coat, and I was out watching, following bird tracks in the sky, and then came in and put that all away, and we're ready to talk to each other in this video medium. And it's so funny, if we look at the beginning of this chapter, Vimalakirti gets asked by Manjushri. Manjushri says, how should we consider living beings? And one of the, Vimalakirti busts out with all these very, very tried and true Buddhist metaphors that they're like dreams, or they're like faces in mirrors, or they're like faces in Zoom mirrors. I mean, it's exactly like the experience we're having of this kind of virtuality, right? It's so fascinating. The metaphor is like perfect for this Zoom experience. I just love it. So yes, so here we are encountering other living beings, almost literally like mirages or images in a mirror, or tracks of birds in the sky. And there's so many things I love about this chapter, but we're going to talk about it after the meditation. And so first, it's time to meditate, as always. So we're going to just go there. And without further ado, I want you to remember that the Bodhisattva path is a heroic path. It's a path of Buddhist heroism, of the idea that one's enlightenment is so joyous and so exuberant and so limitless that one wishes to share it with all beings and is willing to spend the rest of eternity to do that. And so this is essentially the heroic mode of, we're going to just try to help everyone everywhere. And everyone in this Buddhist sense does not just mean all people of all races and genders and creeds and all that, not just that, but all animals, all plants, all bugs, all fish, and not only that, but ghosts and demons and goddesses and angels and hungry ghosts and all these like subtle beings. And not only that, but all of everything I just mentioned in all other brains of all other brains is short for membranes of all other multiverses, right? So the literal meaning of all beings everywhere, right? It just wherever there's anybody, we're going to liberate them or help them to suffer less, to struggle less in their lives, right? So this is the heroic mode of the Bodhisattva. So as we sit down and settle into our dhyānasana, our meditation seat, our meditation posture, I want you to settle in that way, in that mode. Take the asana of the Bodhisattva with the confidence and limitless joy, inconceivably vast compassion as kind of the basis of what we're doing here. And of course, even though it may seem that we're sitting on mundane asanas, mundane zafus, and so on, we of course have our enormous thrones that we've kind of magically grown ourselves to fit. We're in Vimalakirti's empty yet full of the entire universe home. And this is where we're meditating. So closing your eyes, or you can do it with your eyes open, settling in, even though you guys are in your own homes, in other countries and stuff, you still should be very motionless, right? Still, completely still. And what I'd like you to do is, of course, begin breathing deep and slow, very long in breaths, very long out breaths, as deep and long of in breaths and out breaths as is comfortable for you. And that may get quite a bit longer as you sit and settle in. And I want you to focus on the feeling of the belly rising on the in breath and falling on the out breath. And notice that there's this inrush of kind of delicious energy, sparkly, vibrant uplift on the in breath, very pleasant uplift and awakening. And then on the out breath, the whole body just settles and relaxes much, much deeper with each out breath. So that in breath is alivening and awakening, and the out breath is deeply releasing, deeply relaxing. And so continuing to follow these in breaths and out breaths. You can do what you want with your attention, but I suggest you have it kind of wide in the body and look for places that feel good. Look for places that feel open. Look for places, feel for places in the body that feel very at ease, at rest, soothed, integrated, that have a real sense of well-being. And just tune into that and see if you can kind of on purpose, in almost a way that's reminiscent of metta practice, just kind of intend that the whole body feel good. The whole body relax and open and feels kind of integrated and tuned in. So let's just be with this relaxed and yet vibrant body for a while here. And as you continue to breathe and relax, staying both very focused, very clear and bright and energized, and yet soothed, open, released, let go. Make sure that your eyelids and eyes are relaxed and released and soft and unfocused. That your cheeks and lips and mouth area is relaxed. That your upper and lower teeth are not touching, so your jaw is slightly released and your tongue is floating in the mouth. And your scalp and the back of your head and all around your upper neck, you're feeling a draining away of tension, a release, an opening, particularly on the out breaths. And a lot of relaxation floods into the body and drops the whole body lower, drops the whole body deeper into relaxation, deeper into bright, clear, focused relaxation. And then allowing the throat and rest of the neck and shoulders to release and open, allowing tension to just drain away. And allowing the arms to go completely limp and the hands to relax so that they're not prepared to do anything at all. They're completely like two little puppies asleep in the sun. They're just totally relaxed. And as the neck and shoulders and arms and hands drop down, again, a big wave of relaxation passes through the entire body, increasing the sense of well-being, increasing the sense of integration and wholeness. Allowing yourself to relax much, much more deeply. And now feeling the chest and the belly and the upper back and the lower back all releasing and letting go. Allowing your diaphragm to relax. And feeling as the whole torso lets go and softens and opens and releases, that you've dropped down even a further level where it's no longer some kind of effort to relax. There's nobody releasing anything. There's just deep, deep opening, deep heart melting, vast stillness and wakefulness. Intimately and completely available. Next, allowing even the legs, the hips, the legs, and the feet and the toes to just completely let go completely, release and open, allowing the entire body from head to toe, front to back, side to side, to just open, just drop deep and relax. At ease, at peace, and yet bright and clear. Notice how each breath is both energizing and relaxing, brightening awareness and releasing all tension. Absolutely motionless, so relaxed that there's a kind of complete stillness, where stillness itself is meditating you. Good, so that's shamatha with an object. We could call it roughly physical relaxation. Now let's bring a similar quality of relaxation to the mind by doing shamatha without an object. So we simply notice if the mind is trying to find an object or has found an object to hold on to grab onto, to meditate upon, and simply relax the mind, allowing whatever object it is held onto to simply float away. If the mind tightens up again, we relax again. So we're bringing this quality of total relaxation to the core of the mind, to the center of being, letting go of all and any tightness in the mind. Over and over again, releasing, relaxing, and letting go so that the mind settles eventually on nothing in particular. It's not even meditating on the object called nothing. It is just wide open, absolutely relaxed. Awareness of awareness itself. Each time the mind tightens or grips onto or congeals around or pins itself to any object at all, relax the mind. In this stage, the mind is like the sky. It's vast, spacious, with no clouds at all. Just vast, infinite openness that is awake, aware, clear, bright, with no objects at all. And if the mind begins to tighten or get that habit of coming back to wanting to rest on objects, just boot it off and let it fall again into vast, infinite sky. Rather than focusing or resting or tightening or orienting on objects, we are simply, if we're resting on anything, we're resting on awareness itself. allowing the core of the mind to just melt entirely. So there is no core of the mind at all, and there never was. There's just sky, sky-like awareness, aware of awareness. Open, 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 clear sky. No one's making the sky, it's already there. No one's generating any clarity, it's already present. The Buddha nature within is already complete, already perfect and whole from beginningless time. Good. Now let's move even more deeply in this direction, in the spirit of this sutra. We can't stop here. Notice that even awareness itself, this bright sky of brilliant awareness itself is constructed in a sense, is empty, is fabricated, is dependently originated, is its own kind of mirage. It's not some kind of ultimate thing or a stand-in for a deity. Even the awareness is empty. And it's not enough to just think that or say it or believe it, but you must notice the emptiness of the awareness. We could say the virtuality of the awareness, the dreamlike nature of awareness itself. Both there and not there, simultaneously real and not real. unborn and undying, and at the same time, vanishing every instant. We can't even rest in awareness. Manjushri asked Vimalakirti about the root of essentially a mirage. And Vimalakirti rightly answers, how can a mirage have a root? There's just nothing. It's empty. And notice whatever is arising as something to hang on to, a position to hold, a way to see this, the struggle to figure it out, all of that is just completely a mirage. Any sense of anybody doing anything, of anybody meditating, of anybody listening, of anything happening at all, of anything changing, all empty, all constructed, fabricated, void. And then notice that you can't even rest in emptiness. The emptiness itself is empty. There's nothing there. It's just the last thing to hang on to. So just drop that too. And drop it again until it stays dropped. Nothing to hang on to. Now, from this ultimate emptiness, coming back the other way, just notice the first thing arising is Devi, the goddess. A pure gesture of joy and exuberance and Maha Karuna, the great compassion, Maha Maitri, the great love. There, the emptiness itself everts and the goddess pops out. And notice this is the absolute radiant joy and radiant love and radiant compassion of emptiness itself. This is the compassion that is there because there are no others. The Maha Maitri that is there because of the sheer joy of awakening. And notice that awareness is filling now because emptiness is, of course, completely full, filling with this sense of joy and this limitless compassion, caring, kindness, sweetness. That is emanating out in all directions, from everywhere to everywhere, limitlessly. Noticing that awareness itself is radiating compassion, is radiant compassion, radiant joy, infinite caring and kindness, just endlessly pouring forth and pouring forth and pouring forth. And see in awareness, this force of goodness, force of caring and healing and nurturing and kindness, healing and bringing peace and health and joy to all beings everywhere in the world, every sort of being in all universes. Healing every sickness, knitting every wound, bringing food to those who are hungry, bringing peace to those who are in conflict. Bringing kindness to those who need a caring spirit. Bringing belonging to those who are alone. Wherever there is sorrow, bringing laughter and happiness and tremendous joy, overwhelming, overflowing joy. Wherever minds are sick and twisted, they are healed and made sane. This radiant joy and compassion and love from the goddess fixes all broken situations, brokers peace, brings togetherness. Cultivates harmony. satisfaction, goodwill. Because as emptiness is infinitely full, there's even more Mahakaruna available, even more Mahamayatri, even more Mahamudita. Tremendous love, tremendous joy and healing and compassion radiating forth even more completely, even more fully to all universes, all worlds, all beings, in all worlds, in all universes. Pouring forth and radiating out and spreading out and saturating everywhere and everyone. And then the intensity and the force and the power of the compassion and the love and the sweetness kind of simmers down into the Maha Upeksha, a sense of complete equanimity. Everything already completely perfect. Everything set right. Everything at ease. Wide awake, utterly still, perfectly balanced. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. All right, bodhisattvas and shravakas, and devas and devis and gandharvas and rakshasas and nagas and bhutas and pretas and beings of every kind. Let us bring that meditation to a close and feel free to move and stretch. Have a little sip of a comforting beverage. Put on your tortoise hair coat and let's talk about some of this Vimalakirti stuff. The thing that overwhelmingly amuses the fuck out of me about this sutra overall is that it's really literally mocking Theravada Buddhism the entire time. And we could say that it's doing it in a fun, pleasant way, but we can also imagine that it's a little bit intense if for example, it was being performed live before an audience that had, different sorts of monks like Theravada monks and Mahayana monks and nuns. Observing it, it would get pretty uncomfortable for the Theravadans. First of all, because of course Shariputra is the hero of Theravada Buddhism, right? He's the foremost among the wise, and he's sort of he's the Shravaka version of the bodhisattva Manjushri, right? The foremost among the wise. So having him continuously do pratfalls and be the clown and the butt of every joke and sort of the idiot playing the role of the fool in the entire sutra, it's got to be a little intense. And furthermore, there's like the whole thing about the thrones, right? As a Theravada monk, you're never supposed to sit on anything fancy because it'll, kind of be boosting your ego. You're never supposed to sleep on a nice bed or sit in a nice chair. That's all totally verboten. And so the fact that there are these huge, not just nice chairs, but like celestial thrones that we're going to sit on is like busting their vows and kind of busting their chops a little bit. The fact that you're not, if you go, I've spent so much time in India, right? And one of the things is any teacher, even like an English teacher, when you honor the teacher, you make this garland of flowers and put it around their neck. And you honor your parents, you make a garland of flowers and put it around their neck. It's like the flower garland is a major cultural symbol of just respect. And of course, as a Theravada monk, you're not allowed to ever have that. No one can put a flower garland on you. And because again, you don't want to be adorned or given that sort of, prideful position. And so when the goddess shows up and, throws the flowers on everyone and it sticks to the Shravakas, they're making a point, right? They're teasing the Theravadins for being uptight, essentially. And hopefully in a fun and playful way, but really pointing out philosophically that there's a lot of dualism left over in the philosophy of Theravada Buddhism, dualism that the philosopher Nagarjuna removes in the Madhyamaka philosophy of the Mahayana. And you're seeing that kind of Madhyamaka philosophy in action here, where they're kind of showing the dualism. Oh, you think the world is impure, Shariputra, but really it's already perfectly pure. We can sit on the thrones, flowers are fine. But then in this one, as Michael Owens was pointing out, there's kind of the ultimate thing because, of course, in Theravada, the Buddha had to be elaborately convinced that there should be nuns at all. And all the Theravada nuns are supposed to, like, the highest, most advanced Theravada nun must follow the orders of the lowliest Theravada monk. She has to do anything any male monk says. And the best you can get as a Theravada nun in terms of your awakening is to be reborn as a man so that you can actually meditate. And this is how it was presented, right? So, and we're talking 2,500 years ago. I mean, although there's lots of places in the world today where that still seems to make sense to people in some crazy way. So having, the goddess show up and shower everyone with flowers and then start to kind of school Shariputra is a big moment. That is just awesome and really just brings in full gender equality, brings in full non-dual awareness. Hey, what are bodies anyway? What are we even talking about here? It's awesome. It's a great moment. I can't remember which actor one time, I used to live in Hollywood for a long time. I can't remember which actor said that all you have to do to win an Oscar as a male actor is dress up like a woman, is be in drag. And if you think about like all the different movies, that their big moment is, and this is true even in the 30s and 40s and stuff, these kind of drag moments. And so you have to picture in this in this sutra, like Shariputra, who as a Shravaka is going to have a bald head, right? And shaved head and in his robes. When the goddess turns him into a woman, like all of a sudden he's got long hair and he's wearing a sari. And if this sutra was performed as a play, this would be the ultimate humor moment when the audience is just totally laughing and totally engaged, and also seeing the contradictions and the dualism that's still there in the older way of thinking about it, and really busting on that and trying to bring out, hey, we're going about this in a totally different way now. So it's both extremely hilarious and also really sharp. Really sharp. You can, like I say, if you imagine in a real audience, like there being both kinds of monastics present, it would really be hard to leave after the show and be like, I'm just going to stick with my Theravada views. So it's quite a sharp, intense teaching tool. And at the same time, it's done with such humor and awesomeness. So I love this about this sutra. It's just teaching at every moment, and it's doing it in the most provocative and compelling and enjoyable and kind of magical way for human beings. So it's just a world classic piece of literature. Even if you didn't care about Buddhism at all, it's amazing. So that's what sticks out to me about this chapter. It's like, let's really get non-dual. Let's really talk about these subtle or not so subtle prejudices and dualisms that we're bringing into everything, and just bust on that and crack it all wide open and get some real wisdom going here. So it's amazing. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions. I think the other thing is in the early part of the chapter, if you want to get into the core of how people were critiquing Mahayana, it's like, hey, if everything's empty, people are like disappearing balls of foam or mirages. Why do you keep talking about compassion? Who is there even to have compassion for? Aren't you just walking around treating everyone like a dream? And, so we spend the first part of the chapter really deconstructing that whole criticism and saying, well, one way, who is it that's having the dream to begin with? And in another way, and this is kind of unstated, but it's part of the dialogue. It's not that things are only empty, right? They're both there and empty at the same time, and seeing both of those things together. And I very much love how Vimalakirti says over and over, it's just the pure joy of the bodhisattva's liberation that is creating this massive open heart that can be so heroic, right? And just wants to bring this compassion everywhere and this liberation everywhere. So it's quite a bit, for one little tiny chapter. And parts of these dialogues are extracted and used in other sutras all over the place and in other texts and so on. It's sort of like core brick of Buddhism that a lot of other stuff is built on elsewhere. So comments, reports, questions, or spontaneous, liberated poetry?
I had a question.
Who are we talking to here?
Eric.
Good. What's your question?
I was wondering if you could say a bit more about how awareness itself is empty. So, we talk about there's no self, there's no ego, because that's empty. But what about awareness itself? How does that figure into the whole picture?
It's really important that we don't kind of like deconstruct self and world, because it's not just the self that is empty, but the world that is empty. It's really important that we don't deconstruct that only to create some kind of new place to land or bunker or artificial refuge, or let's say deity in awareness, right? That's just another trap. That's just another thing to get stuck on. And so as we go, we do awareness of awareness meditation as kind of the base level of this way of practicing, but we can go deeper and do it in really, really fine-grained way, or like we did it tonight in kind of a big way, just noticing that awareness itself is empty. It's not some kind of ultimate substance or consciousness of the universe or something. It is also dependently arising. It is also void. And, for the kind of coup de grace, the final move of this philosophy, this way of looking, is that even the emptiness is empty. We don't want to make it into a thing. Otherwise, we end up, now we're just worshiping awareness. Now we're just worshiping emptiness and making it into an object and missing the damn point that there are no objects. There's nowhere to rest. There's nothing to make into the new God, right? So that's the idea. And, it's very subtle, and it's very, very crucial as your meditation deepens, that you're not just finding this new sort of, this new puppet to inhabit called awareness, and it's a real trap. People do it all the time.
So is it like getting used to this, just being comfortable with groundlessness?
Comfortable, or that wonderful word, kshanti.
Tolerance?
Kshanti.
Sorry.
The thing that is in this sutra all over the place, where it's like the ability to tolerate groundlessness or tolerate birthlessness, right? That's what they're talking about. Like, we keep wanting to find something to land on, something final to grab onto, something final to trust, and that's called eternalism, right? Which is, in Mahayana Buddhism, that's one of the no-nos, right? We don't want to have an artificial eternalism. And the other side of it, the other thing, the sort of opposite in that pair, is nihilism. the way we're talking about emptiness can end up making people feel like it's just a big nihilism. But that's the other one that we're letting go of. So it's neither eternal nor nihilistic. It's not, it's neither of those, and maybe kind of both at the same time, right? So yes, it's about this kshanti, the ability to, as you say, tolerate groundlessness or tolerate birthlessness, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful meditation, and it's life changing and maybe extremely disturbing and upsetting at first, right? It's got a certain weight to it and power to it that is not to be trivialized, right? So yeah.
So, during the meditation, I noticed you used the word constructed a lot, and it was sort of identified with emptiness, and that kind of snagged my attention. I wonder if you could say a bit more about the relation between those things.
Between what?
Between constructed things and emptiness, I guess.
It's the definition of why things are empty is because they are constructed, right? They're made out of other things, and those other things are just made out of other things, and you can't find a final thing that everything's made out of. It's like the dictionary or something where all the words are just defined by other words. So what's the real original word that allows you to build that edifice? There isn't one. At the heart of it, it just falls apart. And so the world is like that. What's the final thing that you can reduce it all to that makes it all real? You can't. And I mean, that's that beautiful, I love at the beginning, Manjushri and Vimalakirti have that dialogue, and it's in prose, and then there's a part of it that's just like a play, like a script where it's just like Vimalakirti, Manjushri, and they're going back and forth. And Manjushri is basically keeps asking, well, what makes that the thing? And, how do we keep doing that? How do we keep doing that? And at the end, it's like, he's like, what's the root of this? And Vimalakirti is like, you can't have a root to an empty thing. There's no root. That's exactly what they're talking about, that when you build an entire edifice off other part, every part of the house of cards is balanced on another card, and there's no final base to it all. If you see that, it just falls open. Right? So that's the quote constructedness, the fabrication, right? We could call it concepts, we could call it fabrication, we could call it constructedness. But it's sort of where the idea of emptiness comes from. So in one way of looking at it, in early Buddhism, they're always talking about no self, right? Or non-self, or not self, anatta, atman, however you want to say it. And that tends to point to an individual being, the constructedness of the sense of self. But in Mahayana, with the Madhyamika philosophy, we take that further and apply it to everything. It's not just the constructedness of the sense of self, it's the constructedness of everything. And that's this emptiness. So that is a crucial, deep thing to get more and more totally in touch with, basically forever, but also to understand that it's not the only thing, right? Because right there in the Prajna Paramita Hridaya, the Heart of Perfect Wisdom Sutra, it says, this emptiness is form, and form is emptiness. And it's not that one changes into the other or one's kind of mixed in with the other, but they're literally the same thing. So we can't even rest in this kind of emptiness is the thing. You don't even get to do that because it just pops back out the other side. Well, emptiness is form. All this stuff that's empty is also all this stuff. So it's I don't know. I have a personal way of interpreting it that I think they're talking about how perception works and how we build stuff in perception. But of course, taken on its own terms, it's talking about the world also.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any last thing here?
Yeah, so I have a quick question on, I guess, not self and emptiness, just both in broad categories. So I guess my question is, what is it about sort of having, for example, an experience of like no self? What is it about that how do you go from having that experience to assuming that that's sort of like a deeper ontological category, right? Because in our daily like sort of automatic lives, we identify with ourselves, and that turns out to be wrong. That experience turns out to be wrong. But what is it about encountering emptiness or no self that makes you say, okay, well, this experience is somehow right, and there's not a deeper like nominal reality that I can't access beyond that? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I get you. Because there's a lot in what you're asking, but it got a little jumbled there for me.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is that how do you go from an experience to a claim? It seems that you're taking like what's given, this experience of no self. I mean, how is that any more real than?
Out in the world, is that what you're saying? Kind of assuming it applies to everything else.
I guess, but just, I mean, even if you don't apply it to anything else, you're taking sort of what's given, right? And you're just like, I mean, what makes you think that you have access to everything in that state and that there's not something beyond our own experience that we can experience as a self? Or
Yes. So yeah, I mean, that's what I said, at least in my, if I'm just talking for me, I think make an ontological claim about the world, I'm never going to do that
Mhm.
with this. I mean, I think on its own terms, it is doing that. I would not, I would make claims about perception,
Okay.
right? And I think if we look at there's different families or flavors or sects, we could almost say, of Madhyamaka that are totally like Yogacara or Chittamatra, where they're like, no, it really, all there is a dream. There is no like real world at all. But there's other flavors that do take a viewpoint more like what I'm describing. Like, yeah, the ontology of the real world is one thing, but my perception of it is another. And if we look at these paradoxes and we look at what they're trying to say about emptiness in these texts, I find, again, for me, it makes tremendously, absolutely brilliantly perfect sense about perception. Just me talking. Okay, so that's it for part 4B of Vimalakirti, the Vimalakirti experience. Michael Owens will be back on Sunday with part 5. And of course, this is the moment where we talk about the beauty and the strength and the power and the love of our Sangha. So Katie, take it away.
So the Dharma Collective is a community, and it's a self-sustaining community. So all of the operations of the collective and our teachers are supported entirely by contributions from the Sangha. We are committed to the idea that the Dharma is accessible to everyone, regardless of financial means. So we never put a financial barrier between people and the Dharma. And in order for us to do that, we rely on the community to donate to sustain the Sangha. So please donate if you can. The link is in the chat. And come back on Sunday for the following week of the Vimalakirti Sutra. And then one more important announcement for those of you in this room who also go to Psychedelic Sangha on Saturdays. Psychedelic Sangha is now at its own private link, and you have to register to receive the link. So I'm putting the registration in the chat now. It costs $1 to register, as like a minimum is $1 to keep the Zoom bombers out. If that dollar is a hardship for you, please email us, we'll figure something out. But you do have to register or else you won't be able to get in the room. So do that. If you've never been to Psychedelic Sangha before and it sounds like something that's interesting to you, it is. We meditate for like 30 to 40 minutes and then have a discussion around the intersection between psychedelics and Buddhism. So come to that if you'd like. That's on Saturday night at 6. And otherwise, I'll see everyone back here on Sunday night. Thank you, Michael. Thank you all.
We're not quite done. We're going to do our final few minutes of connecting to emptiness of emptiness. So do that in whatever way works for you. Feel free to sit for another hour or two. I certainly would like to do that right now. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye, everybody.
Night, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Take care.